Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game is one of the most fun fighting games I've played in years. It features an incredibly high skill ceiling with ample room for player expression to show off your own unique skill and style. However, it is also surprisingly easy to pick up and play even as an absolute beginner to fighting games, as long as you know what to focus on first. My name is Brian F, and I've been a competitive fighting game player for over a decade and have been producing educational content for nearly as long. And I'm now addicted to Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game, and I want to share with you how to get in on the fun. Whether you're just a fan of the Avatar universe and have zero fighting game experience, or are coming from other fighting game titles and are curious about getting into this one, we have you covered in this video. Here we'll break down the 4 elements you need to master to level up your gameplay and get quickly into the action. So thank you to Paramount Games and Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game for sponsoring this video, and let's go master those elements. So to get started on your journey, we're going to first head on over to training and go into free training here, and then on the next screen you're going to pick a character that looks cool to you. Whether it's a character you know from the show or just a character that piques your interest based on their visual design, just pick one that looks cool to you now to get started. Now, once in training mode, let's understand the basic control scheme for Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game. This is a 4-button fighter. You have your A, B, C, and flow attack buttons. So the A attack button is going to be your fastest button with the least amount of range, does the least amount of damage, and your heavy attack will be the slowest, but also the most range generally and do the most damage. There's also different properties with these moves based on the directions you hold. So while you're holding down, you can have a different access or a different set of these moves that you have access to here. And also in the air, if you jump up or forward, you can press A, B, or C and have different access to different moves with these attack buttons as well. So along with your normal attacks, you also have special moves in this game. And there's 2 types of ways of activating special moves. You either have quarter circle forward inputs or quarter circle back inputs. A quarter circle forward is a quarter of a circle, and that is done from going down, down, forward, forward. And we're always talking about the perspective of facing your opponent. So I'm on the left side of the screen here as Aang, Korra here is on the right. So a quarter circle forward will be down, down, forward, forward. And then to activate the special move, you press one of the 3 attack buttons. So as I go to the forward input, I time the attack button as I hit the forward portion, and it gives me this scooter approach here that Aang has. If I activate it with A, it has one set of properties, B has different properties, and C has different properties as well. You also have quarter circle back special moves. So here it is, A, B, and C with Aang, and you can see they have different properties also, and they're done the same way by timing the button activation once I complete the down, down, back input. Now, if you want to know all of your character special moves, you can always pause and go to the command list and look at the character special section. It describes all of the different special moves and the different properties you have out of them and how to activate them, and a little bit of a tutorial on how they could be used. So be sure to check out your specific character and see what special moves they have. Now onto the flow button. This button is very unique. If you hold the flow button, you get into the flow stance. We'll cover this more later, but this is a very strong defensive option. And then you have flow moves. So every character has different flow moves that they use the flow gauge. That is that blue bar underneath the health bar. If you hold back and flow with Aang, he has that move that sends him in the air. Forward flow has this hop, and then down flow, he goes into this stance. And out of each one of these, Aang can do different actions by using his attack buttons. So once again, you're going to pause the game, go to the flow move section, and get a bit of an idea of what to do with your flow moves. A lot of them have states that they activate where you then press an attack button out of them to do different things. So like down flow with Aang, if I press A, I get this little blowing attack. If I press B, he flies into the air where you can then follow up and do other actions. And then C will also do a hop as well where you can do other actions also. Figure out what you can do with your character, play with these moves a little bit, and get a feel for what unique options they have. Now, the last thing to know about the moves in this game is dashing and using a dash macro. You can dash with 2 attack buttons in this game. Just if you press 2 attack buttons together and hold nothing, you go forward. If you hold back, you dash back. But you can also bind to your controls a dash macro. So my controller settings here, I put dash on my left bumper button. What that allows me to do is just tap that button and move around. Dashing is really important. You don't want to mess it up and accidentally like miss a button and do an attack. So you just want to get familiar with dashing using the dash macro. It'll make your movement much better. Now let's get into the basics of using your moves to string together offensive sequences. One thing to note here is that every one of the cast has complete auto combos except for my guy Sokka by just mashing on the A attack. So here I am with Aang just mashing A, and you get pretty competent auto combos. You can use this both on block in order to pressure the opponent, and if you actually hit them, it'll perform a full combo as well. So if you want to just play the game by finding your opening and then pressing the A button repeatedly when you finally make contact with the opponent and you see an opening to attack, that is perfectly fine to get started with. These auto combos will do less damage when you actually make contact with the opponent. So over time, you might want to learn how to better use these combos and do more manual combos over time, but definitely a valid way to get started. Now let's talk about how your moves actually chain together. So one thing to keep in mind is this is a chain-based fighter. For the most part, you can press your A button and then cancel A into B and then cancel B into C to climb the tree, starting from the weakest and fastest attack all the way to the heaviest. So that would look something like this. And when you're chaining attacks, you're not waiting for the previous one to finish before pressing the next. What you really want to be doing is before the first move even finishes, you're pressing the next one in a nice rhythm. One problem beginners have though is they actually end up pressing these buttons way too fast. But if I go too fast here, I'm pressing A, B, C, but I'm not even getting my B attack to come out. It's skipping right over that and going to the C. So find a gentle rhythm with timing your chain cancels. If you put the dummy here on auto block, you can actually change their block state. If I do my delay cancel or my chain cancel too slow, you'll see that they actually end up blocking it. If I do it too fast, I might miss a move in between, but if I do it just right, you see that it'll all hit properly, give a full combo, and chain all the way through. And like I mentioned before, there are variations. Aang here, for example, can do 2 A buttons before B, and B actually has 2 hits if you just press it once, and you don't have to cancel it right away. So I can do something that looks more like this with Aang, and you can also, of course, do different moves out of this. For example, Aang has a down and C move, which launches them in the air. So some of Aang's chains might look more like this, where they end in the down C instead of just the standing C like that. So the main idea is to just get this basic rhythm going so that you're able to properly structure a combo together. So if you have that block mode set to always, you'll notice that the opponent just can block every attack you throw at them and you can't really get any damage on them. So how do you beat blocking in this game? That's where the throw mechanic comes into play. So throw is performed by pressing your A button and your flow button simultaneously. You'll see here, if I'm not close enough to the opponent, Aang will reach out and go whoops when he doesn't make contact. But once you get in range, you're able to actually throw the opponent successfully. And so this is what causes people to want to get out of your pressure, because if you just do the entire attack sequence, the A, B, C, you notice you're pushing them away from you. The threat of hitting them depletes at that point. What incentive do they have to just not block? What you could do instead is stop your offense, dash in, and grab instead. Now suddenly they have an incentive to get out of the situation and not just let you keep pressuring them because they're scared of getting grabbed. This is the basic premise of the strike versus throw mix-up for fighting games. Now, what would you do in order to capitalize on this fear? Let me go ahead and show you. If they never challenge, I could eventually just sneak in a grab. But if instead they are challenging, when I go for that grab, they're gonna mash on me and get a big old combo. They're gonna stop my momentum. This is where your strings come into play. If I go through my strings airtight by mashing them as fast as possible, you're gonna notice that I'm not gonna hit them. It's gonna cause all this pushback. They're never gonna get interrupted. However, you can stagger your string timing and delay when you cancel to the next string in order to bait them into pressing a button and counter hitting them out of the button. A counter hit is when you hit them before their move actually comes out. So you can see here, by delay my button a little bit, even the counter hit pop-up appears, I hit them out of their move because I caught them mashing. Figure out how to delay your timings if the opponent is blocking nonstop. However, on the other hand, if you finally have them blocking, they're not blocking after you hit them, or they're not mashing rather, that's when you mix in that dash up grab. That keeps them on their toes, and now that's the genesis of how the game is structured. They want to get away from you using movement or using their attacks to challenge your pressure, and you want to condition them to block so that they don't get hit while you stagger your attacks, or to block so that you can dash up and grab them instead. Now that you've learned about offensive strings, let's use those strings to turn into combos. But first, why are combos even important in the first place? You could be the best player in the world at reading your opponent and navigating around them and getting your hits in, but if every time you outplay your opponent, you only get a measly A button in for damage, you're doing very little damage per opening against your opponent. Meanwhile, a more experienced player with combos might do something a bit more like this, doing, clearly like 10 times as much damage as you are, and they're going to win 10 times faster. So it's important to be able to turn your openings into damage to close out rounds sooner so that you get the edge on your opponent. When you have the dummy set to block after hit, if I do my basic combo, you can see there Korra puts up the ice shield there. She's blocking the hits as I mess it up. However, if I do a true combo, once I land the first hit, you see all the hits connect properly and she's unable to block in between. Now, the basic universal combo for most of the cast is going to be just like our offensive string, A, B, C, but this time we're going to add a special move at the end. So with Aang here, I'm going to do the quarter circle back light attack. This is going to use what is called a special cancel. Just like you canceled your A into B and B into C, you can now cancel your C into a special move. But all that requires is when you press C, while the move is going on and activating and about to hit the opponent, you should be timing your special move motion and then activating it with the attack as the C makes contact with the opponent. You have a little bit of a window to input it after the C makes contact, or any of the normals, rather. Any of these buttons you can cancel into specials, but it has to be done during a window of the actual attack. Don't wait until the move finishes and then do the cancel. Because you can see here, it's not comboing. Just work on getting cozy with maybe your C into the special cancel and see that it combos and get used to that, and then string it all together. And with that, you should have A, B, C special move. This will take a little bit to get used to, but this is a basic building block for the future of all your combos and will help you greatly advance in your learning if you can get this one down pat. While this combo is effective and very simple, you can also keep it even simpler once again by just going with the auto combo and mashing A in these openings. That is A-okay to get started with. But if you want to do more, you can look into character-specific resources and learn your characters more in depth. The combo system in this game is very, very deep and different per character and support, so don't get intimidated by that fact. It should be something that inspires you to be able to learn even more. The game is very deep but easy to pick up and play. So for Aang, for example, I would do something more like this, route into the down C instead, and that'll allow you to do a launching combo, and you can even fly in here with your flow attack and continue to combo that way, right? So you can see the building blocks are unique per character and get really interesting and engaging, but that can come in due time. When you're first starting, just make sure to keep it simple and get the damage when you can, and don't overcomplicate things to get started. A, B, C, and to special move is a great way to get your hand started at understanding the game. Now let's get into mastering defense. I cannot stress enough how strong blocking is in this game. You'll defend against the vast majority of moves. Now, your default defensive position will be holding down and back. Only certain moves will force you to block by holding back. Those moves are moves that come from the air, so the opponent is above your head and they're falling down with an attack. You will have to block those by holding back, otherwise you will get hit. And certain moves like Aang's quarter circle back A, and also his forward and B attack, these are overhead attacks that actually force you to block standing by holding back while on the ground. But in this game, most attacks hit in a way where you can block both down and down back, and there's also low attacks that force you to hold down back. Now, as we explained before, throws are what beats blocking, but throws don't do that much damage, so if you get hit by a throw, don't consider it to be too big of a deal. It actually eliminates the risk of getting hit by a bigger opening. And one thing to consider is once you get thrown, they can't really throw you again. So if I go for a throw, get up here and try to throw again, I'm going to get hit every time. You cannot throw people as they're getting off the ground in this game. So you have one less thing to worry about. You probably just want to block. Now, of course, I could just walk up and try to time a move to hit them and get a full combo potentially. So mashing attacks is a risk, but it just goes to show you that blocking is very safe, because the worst thing that happens is you get thrown for not very much damage. Now, of course, you can't block forever. You do have to find a moment to challenge. And when you do want to challenge, you could always go for your fastest button to try to check them from moving forward, like we talked about earlier. But also, let's get into the flow button and what this move really does. So here, I'm going to have Korra do this loop sequence where she is going ham on the auto combo, just pressing A over and over. And instead of blocking it, which I can do here by holding down back and defend against it, I can instead try holding flow. While you are holding flow, you literally cannot be hit by any attack. So I can just hold this as long as I want, and I will dodge everything that Korra is throwing at me. Now, the advantage of this versus blocking is it does create a little bit of a gap between you and the opponent. As you can see, it creates a lot more space. So I can use that opportunity to instead try to do some movement to get out of the situation. So you see there, by holding the flow button, it actually made the last part of the sequence whiff, so I was able to get that jump in and punish instead. So it creates a little bit of a mind game in terms of, do I want to keep attacking the opponent while they're doing the flow, or should I stop and try to pressure in a different way? So you might be asking yourself, how do I stop someone from just holding this button the entire time? The answer is grab. Flow is very susceptible to throws, and I told you earlier that grabs don't do much damage. That is not true when you land a counter hit grab, which you get on an opponent holding flow. If you throw someone's flow like that, you can potentially do a lot of damage to them. So you have to mix in when you do it and understand that there's a mind game always going on. Now let's get into what might be the best defensive option in the game, that is the ability to roll on the ground. So if you see here, I'm playing Sokka now, and if I do a basic combo ender, I can then try to approach them once they land on the ground and get some offense going. However, let's go back to that basic starter. And instead, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn on the option to roll. So in the training options under dummy settings, I'm going to player 2 ground recovery, and I'm setting that to forward. Now, if I do that same knockdown and try to go for pressure, they're out of there. Look at that. Look how far away they are. They rolled forward out of this offensive situation. So the roll really, really helps you get out of this situation. Now you might be thinking, okay, what if I instead just try to chase that down? That is definitely possible, right? If I read that they're gonna roll, I can back up instead and put them in a situation where I can keep pressuring them. So instead of going forward, I back up here, and I'm able to put them in a situation where they have to guess on what I'm gonna do to them at that point. However, there's also a backwards roll. So if I get that same attack, I try to read they're gonna roll forward, instead they roll backwards, they're away from me entirely. The roll is really important because you can mix up your options both forward and backwards and keep the opponent guessing. The same thing applies in the corner as well. You might think that you always want to roll forward because that is very strong when you're in the corner, holding forward on your wake up. Because yeah, if I try to pressure you in that corner, you're just gonna get on out of there, and I'm not gonna be able to get my pressure going. So that is pretty strong, right? But eventually, when they try to chase down your forward roll out of the corner, mix in the back roll, and you're just gonna let them run away from you and create space. It's important to always try to hold forward or hold backwards initially to get the roll and then start blocking appropriately away from the opponent right after, but mix in those options so that they never know which way to attack. Now, what applies to the ground roll also applies to the air. So a lot of combos and situations in this game will have you hitting each other out of the air. And if I do a sequence of Sokka and I interrupt the combo when they're in the air, by default, you'll just flip out and land on the ground. If you don't press anything while you're falling, you're actually fully invincible until you hit the ground, so you can just go back to blocking, and when you land the ground, you can block the next sequence. But you also have a forward and a backwards air recovery. So same idea applies. If you hold forward while getting hit in the air, you can flip forward and land in that angle, which can help you escape maybe out of the corner or get in a better situation. And same thing applies for instead holding backwards. So if I do that here, they hold backwards, they're gonna get away from me instead. So make sure to mix up your options and make sure the opponent never knows what your next move is gonna be. It's gonna help you escape a lot of pressure situations. So the last and most powerful defensive technique you should know is the flow escape. Out of there. So you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm having Korra do a string on me, and then on wake up, I'm holding the forward or back and flow button. So here, I'm gonna start holding back and flow. I'm out of there. And in this situation, I'll hold forward and flow. And you see I'm out of there. It gives you a roll that's like twice as far as your normal roll. The downside is it uses 2 bars of your flow gauge there underneath your health bar, and it locks you out of building the gauge back for a little bit. So it is costly. If you spend all of your flow gauge and you go into an unbalanced state, that is pretty dangerous. Unbalanced is a very punishing state. We're not going to go too much into it in this tutorial, but just be mindful of that. But this works both in the air and on the ground. So if you're getting mauled, I definitely would always go for the flow escape, especially if you have a lot of flow meter available. Get out of there, use this here and there. It'll help you escape really nasty situations. It's almost impossible to chase down, so make sure to use flow escape when you have the meter for it. So now it's time to master the last, but maybe the most important element of Avatar Legends the Fighting Game, and that is movement. The movement is the source of neutral in this game, and it boils down to basically 2 factors. You're either trying to find a way to sneak in an approach on the ground to pressure the opponent, or try to find a way to sneak in a way to pressure from the air with the strong air mobility options in this game. And in general, getting high above the opponent is very strong. While there is no air blocking in this game, the anti-air options are a little bit more preemptive, the moves that you can use to stop people. So sitting around still trying to stop someone from approaching you is generally not the best advice I would give. You kind of want to find opportunities to get above the opponent and get in on them, or find ways to sneak in on the ground once you condition them to go ahead and pressure them that way. So I recommend figuring out some good options for your character. With Sokka, he has a wall jump, which he can use to get over the opponent, and it has crazy air mobility once you start mixing in all these options, and can just run cancel and run around the screen, go crazy with all that. Characters like Aang have the down flow into B, which allows you to get up over the opponent as well. Other characters have wall jumps, and you can also do things like regular super jump, where you press down before hitting up and forward to approach from higher up as well. Figure out what your strong looking attack buttons are. They're usually going to be your jump B or jump C move, and time them as they're coming down to hit the opponents. And then also figure out how to use your dashes very effectively. I'm holding forward and back while dashing around. Some characters have runs where instead you hold the dash button instead. This will take a little bit of finesse and investigation with your character, but generally you want to find ways to get above the opponent to a pressure, and then use your normals to check people, and then when you have them conditioned, you can run in and go for pressure or a grab. And while I did say dedicated anti-airs can be a little bit harder to find, some people have really strong anti-airs that lead to full combos. Sokka, I can just do run into the quarter circle back A attack, and if it hits high up enough, you can potentially get full combos from it, so it can be really damaging if you land it at the right height and can do a ton of damage to the opponent to punish them for jumping. And aside from that, every character has the universal option of the air grab. So I mentioned grab on the ground is A and flow. If you jump in the air and press A and flow together, you can also grab people. This move is very fast, and the idea is you just, when you see the opponent in the air, you react with hitting up forward and grab almost instantly. You'll grab them and punish them for the jump, and you can interrupt people out of their approaches with this option. And it's pretty much universal to get combos from the air grab. What you do varies by character. With Sokka here, I can do run into the slide and then do like a super off of it if I want to. And also, if I'm in the corner, for example, it's much easier. I can do pretty much whatever I want at this point. But other characters have character-specific combo options off the air grab that can do a lot of damage. So air grab is going to be a really strong option to learn how to utilize when you see people go into the air. And with that, you should have all the elements you need to start having fun with Avatar Legends the Fighting Game. While this guide did cover a lot of the basics, there's still more advanced mechanics that I did not get into in this video. We didn't cover things like the unbalanced state or the flow reversal mechanic. We didn't get into the chakra meter that you use for things like EX versions of your special moves or even the supers that the characters have. And of course, we did not touch upon all the advanced combo routing and pressure sequences that will be discovered by players as they evolve in the game. But this foundation you now have gives you the runway to pick up the pieces as you go along to become the true Avatar master. So once again, thank you to Paramount Games and Avatar Legends the Fighting Game for sponsoring this video, and thank you so much for watching. Peace.